Shalom to Lee Kaplan. Welcome to Israel.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here.
So you're here on a very important visit to Israel. First of all, tell us about your visit.
I'm here in Israel this week in order to talk to the seats of power and explain to them how much of a threat the ISM really poses to Israel. I believe that they pose a greater threat than the armed terrorists do. I've spent the last 10 days visiting with members of the Knesset, discussing ways to create new laws to actually penalize members of the ISM when they're caught here in terms of jail time and fines. And I've met with intelligence people here and shared information that I have about the ISM.
Now, for those who don't know, who is the ISM?
The ISM is the International Solidarity Movement, and what that is a consortium of anti-Israel groups which were basically put together by the PFLP and are allied with communist anarchist groups in the United States and all over the world. And it's really a way that the PFLP, the PLO, and now they've moved into operating more closely with Hamas, has allied itself with anarchist communist groups in Europe and in the United States to promote the destruction of the State of Israel. And they're doing a great job of it. As you know, they had the 7th flotilla where they had the Israeli Shayetet 13 commandos were injured. And only today, I think, which is very apropos to why I'm here, Viva Palestina just got into Gaza again and delivered $5 million to Hamas. And all this is going on because the Israeli government doesn't seem to appreciate who these people are and what they're really doing.
Now, you're here to warn. Why is this happening? Why do you have to come here to warn? How do you explain the situation?
Well, I can tell you that the research articles that I've done that are on the internet about the ISM, people don't read. They'll look for 500 words and then they drop off. The ISM is causing constant problems in the West Bank. It's actually grown. It's raising more and more money. It's getting bigger and bigger flotillas. They plan to fly planes into Gaza next time. And all this is going on. One of the ISM leaders explained one time that all this rioting at the security fence is training to also bring it to the U.S.-Mexican border one day, which I have no doubts is going to occur.
Now, I understand that this is not the first time. You've actually warned in the past.
I warned the Israeli intelligence about the flotilla boats 1 year before the first one went out. And nothing was done to stop it, and it got into Gaza. And it didn't make the news media, but they had a second boat, and that one didn't make the news media, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. And the Israeli government didn't put those people in jail who were involved with this, or fine them, or make it expensive for them to do these things, or even sink the boats, or even impound the boats so the Arabs who bought the boats for them would lose the money and not pay for a new boat. And ultimately, on the 7th flotilla, they managed to recruit IHH and Turkish military personnel in plain clothes, and they injured our soldiers. And this is inaction of the government that allowed things to get this bad. And I want to add one other thing on television. Huwaida Araf needs to be put in prison, needs to be prosecuted and fined and put in prison.
And who is she?
Huwaida Araf is one of the co-founders of the ISM. She's Mrs. Haddam Shapiro. She has Israeli and American citizenship. After every flotilla, when she was taken off the boats, she was immediately taken to a train station or a bus station and released, only to start the next flotilla, which ultimately led to the injury of Israeli commandos on the Turkish ship. It's high time that the Israeli government arrest her and put her in prison and fine her. And they have to do that with the rest of the ISM too. I just want to make it clear to everybody that our agency warned the government that the IHH was on the flotilla ship in the last raid, the one where the Israeli commandos were injured, and it was ignored. And Israeli soldiers were injured. And the same thing goes on in Berlin every Friday. And now they have a new ISM agent here who wants to start activities in Safra in the West Bank to do the exact same thing that they do in Berlin every Friday. And I can tell you that my meeting in the Prime Minister's office, they weren't even interested in taking his name. and he's in the country illegally right now.
Now, you're here in Jerusalem. We're standing near the Knesset, Israel's parliament. Tell us about your meetings here.
I was very pleased with the meeting at the Knesset. I met with two Knesset members, Anastasia McKelly, and I met with Ari Eldad's legal attaché, and we discussed creating new laws with penalties for the ISM to stop it from being fun and games, and create a situation where these internationals don't come into the country repeatedly, even after being deported, and riot and carry on and injure our soldiers. I had a meeting with the Terrorism Information Center. Very excellent meeting where we compared notes, and they found a lot of interesting information with my stuff, and I found interesting information from them. And then I met in the Prime Minister's office, and to be honest, I didn't feel I got the reception I should have gotten from them. However, ultimately we're going to show the Israeli government that they've got to do something about the ISM, because they're not protecting the Israeli people while letting this organization continue its activities.
So you're getting reactions like, who are you coming from America telling us in Israel what to do?
Well, they didn't say that, but that was the reaction I got in the Prime Minister's office, I feel. The Knesset was much more interested in our research and the information our agency brought out. And I do believe that this will be a very profitable trip, in the sense that legislation will come out finally putting the lid on the international solidarity movement.
Now, in addition to all this, I understand that your organization is actually very active, and you had some interesting cooperations.
Well, yes, actually, our agency works, in investigating things like this. We had a student who gave us a tip about an ISM safe house in Chicago. Ultimately, the authorities were notified, and there was recently a raid in Chicago, which led to a raid in Minneapolis and North Carolina also, of this safe house, which apparently has links to the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, to Hezbollah, and even to FARC in Colombia. And we were able to link this individual who is in Israel right now with that safe house. And frankly, I'm appalled that I come to Israel with the information. They don't even want to take his name. But we have his picture and everything. So it's time that the government take a little security concern about the ISM and put a stop to what they're doing, because they're injuring the soldiers, they're injuring the border police, and now we have them injuring the Navy SEALs on the sea. This is stuff that we can put a stop to.
Now, Lee, after the flotilla, everything was about the interrogations, the investigations. We have the Turco Commission, of course. How do you see all this?
Well, it's one of the reasons why I came, because I wanted to make sure that the information gets out here in Israel about the Turco Commission, that when President Obama calls for an investigation, it needs to be pointed out that these flotillas could not exist without the cooperation of the U.S. government. These flotillas were started by Paul LaRuti in the San Francisco Bay Area, where I live, less than 30 minutes from my home. This is where these things originated. They raised their money as nonprofits, completely tax-free in the United States. They're educational foundations, which mean they're only allowed to engage in educational things. They're not supposed to be buying boats and ships and yachts and planes in order to aid a terrorist group. It's against the law. The Internal Revenue Service knows about this, and they ignore it and look the other way. And in addition, by helping Hamas and even bringing money to Hamas, there's a photograph that we have of Code Pink's Medea Benjamin, who is part of the ISM, handing a check to Hamas's foreign minister. This is giving material and financial aid to Hamas. Paul LaRuti of the ISM received the gold medal from Hamas and has also brought material aid to Hamas. And yet Eric Holders, who is our Attorney General in the United States, the Justice Department, will not prosecute them. And then the President has the nerve to say to Israel, well, we want an investigation about what happened on the flotilla. The U.S. government is the reason those flotillas are able to survive and to grow, and to demand an investigation by Israel of it is outrageous. The fact is, Israel has to turn to its ally, the United States, my country, and they have to say, you're our ally, why don't you enforce your own laws and stop allowing these people to raise money for these flotillas to break our sovereignty and to aid Hamas. This is the most important message I want to get out during my trip here. You know, one of the things I want to point out about this situation I'm talking about is Congressman Brad Sherman in California has pointed out that these organizations like Free Gaza are raising money tax-free, which is illegal, and the IRS and the government isn't doing anything about it. So this is something that even Congress is starting to take a look at, but it's something that Israel has to complain about to Congress and to President Obama.
Lee Kaplan, thank you very much.
Thank you.